You're still watching Good Morning Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for choosing us this morning. Now, this year the country is expecting a bumper harvest after receiving sufficient rainfall throughout the season. Soon after harvesting, farmers are expected to prepare land and set the tone for the next farming season. To discuss this and more, we have in the studio an agricultural scientist, Wencelas Nyamfukuza. Wencelas, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here.
It is a pleasure having you with us.
Indeed.
Now, to start off this conversation, can you just tell us what is the importance of land preparation?
Okay, the backbone of our farming generally, if you are to get a bumper harvest in the subsequent season, is you need to make sure that you set the foundation as precise as possible. And to do so, what is one of the important steps is to make sure that your land is thoroughly prepared. And to do so, we need to incorporate all the soils, we need to incorporate all the previous debris, the trashes from the previous harvest, so that you incorporate it into the soil, so that if you disc your land, as you mix those soils with others, you prepare a well fine tilth, so that the subsequent seeds will produce almost 100% or nearly 100% germination.
Okay. Now, you mentioned steps. Are there maybe any specific steps that are there in land preparation after harvesting?
Indeed, we actually have got the first thing that you need to take into consideration is having a very good pH in that soil. So one of the things that I usually encourage is to make sure that you have got a pH that is of within the range of 5.5 to 6.5. And to do so, you need to take your soils to a laboratory. You take just samples. If you send those soils to laboratory, you will get the results within 6 or 10 days.
Maybe in layman terms, you and I may know what a pH is,
Yeah.
but maybe for someone who's at home who doesn't understand the sort of scientific terms, when we're talking about the pH of the soil, what is it that we're talking about?
Okay, we are generally referring to the sweetness or the sweetness of the soil in general. So what we are talking about is, when you are talking about the sweetness, we generally these are soils that are referred to as acidic. Those soils that are a bit in just as it is acidic. So those are within from 4 in general below to below. Then there are sweeter soils that are from 5.5 to actually more than 13 to up to 14. So those are the soils. So as a crop has got a minimum requirement that it requires. It can grow from 5.5, but those have got implications in terms of the nitrogen use efficient or generally the fertilizers that you put. So if you put your soils at a requirement that it is actually at optimum, for example, if you are talking about maize, at pH of 6.8, you have got 100% fertilizer use efficiency. So the pH is just a value that allows you to guide what exactly are you going to get after that that planting. So what, as farmers, as precision farmers, I'm sure you understand that precision, I'm just referring to smart farmers that understand what needs to be done and not necessarily just wasting resources. One of the precious resources that we have is fertilizer. So the pH is a key determinant on how much fertilizer we're going to put. So we need to pay particular attention to that.
Okay. It's interesting that you mentioned the pH levels of the soil and how important fertilizers are in as much as output is concerned.
That's
and yesterday we had a conversation that is more or less like the one that we're having right now. We talked again about fertilizers, where we had organic fertilizers. Can you just maybe delve into that and tell farmers which is the best, in as much as we touched on it yesterday?
Okay, when you talk about the best fertilizer, in other words, we need a fertilizer that addresses the needs of a crop. A person and a crop are just the same. A person requires a balanced diet, a crop requires a balanced diet. So what we need to do is we need to just analyze the fertilizer. Is it addressing the needs of what I need? For the farmers that are interested in organic farming, they can actually do away with the chemical fertilizers that we usually know as the conventional fertilizers. There are fertilizers that are coming in right now. I'm sure you've heard something about organic fertilizers, where the markets for our produce right now, the good thing is about general in Zimbabwe, we've got the best soils in the world so far, for we can produce something that is organic. So if you are a farmer that is inclined to organic production, you need to focus obviously with organic products. I'm sure you've heard about things like SASA, the NutriPlant organic fertilizer. Those are the fertilizers that are trending right now. And farmers, I can actually safely say you need to do those with. But for the farmers who are interested in the other fertilizers, it's just the same. What you need to bear in mind is you are supposed to have a balanced diet. So you need to do, the fertilizers are already tested. You've heard about compound D, which has got 7, 14, 7. In other words, it is simply saying it has got 7% nitrogen, 14% phosphorus, and 7% potassium. The
Now,
other
let's okay, fine. Let's go back now to land preparation.
Exactly.
What then is the importance of quickly preparing land?
When we are preparing land, I'm sure you've heard about something when I was talking about you need to condition your soil. Coming in with the liming. Liming is that material that we use. If your soil have got bad pH, lime helps you to address that. So if you address that, if you put that lime right after harvesting, your soils will still have some inherent moisture, which is a prerequisite in terms of if you want to make sure that we have we have conditioned the soil thoroughly. And that liming materials would need about 6 to 6 months to thoroughly work. So for us to do so, you need to prepare the land as soon as harvesting, whilst the soil is still having some inherent moisture, whilst the soil is still workable. It is still easier to use less draft power. If you are a farmer who is in the raw area, you would notice that we call it winter plowing. In Kumamisha, they actually say winter plow. But right in commercial terms, they actually say winter plowing. So that if you are using tractors, you are going to use less diesel because the soil generally is still soft and workable.
Interesting conversation we're having here, Wenceslas. As we conclude, I just want to talk about something that is a little bit topical at the moment. Yesterday with the GMB, warning farmers or talking to farmers about harvesting. So you know what, a lot of farmers are harvesting a little bit early, and the moisture content in maize at this particular point in time is a little bit too much, because I understand the moisture content is supposed to be at 12.5%. What's your word to the farmers who are probably harvesting early? How do you know that, what, the moisture content is now right for me to harvest and take my yield to GMB?
Okay, the first thing, there are, of course, different methods which you can use. For example, if you are someone who doesn't have some devices that you can use to test for moisture, you can just use the ordinary ways of just crushing the maize with the grains or any grain that you have with your teeth. You will see that there are still some patches of white which are not yet covered into white. That means that you are not your grain are not yet ready for the market. But if you are someone with other, the implications are there, of course. Number one, other than just sending to the GMB, you are going to lose, number one, on moisture. You are going to lose on the shelf life is going to be reduced, because you notice that the shelf life is determined by the correct harvesting at a correct moisture. So your maize is going to deteriorate in terms of color. The maize might even turn to brown, which is not which is something that we don't expect.
So it is important to wait until the maize is the correct moisture level.
That's actually true.
And you harvest. We're speaking there to Wenceslas Nyam-Pfungudza, who is an agricultural expert, joining us in the studio and just talking to us about the importance of land preparation after harvesting. Thank you so much for having joined us, and good morning, Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much.
It is a pleasure having you. We hope you're able to come again next time and talk to us about maybe all things agriculture.
Thanks. Okay. Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome. For now, let's take a look at what's happening in the world of business in Business Breakfast. Up next.